is going on YouTube? This is Due Diligence here, and today we're gonna rarely do some debunk some FUD on MMAT because we're truthful YouTubers, and if we see any FUD or some information that might lead to some misinformation, that we want to point it out because a lot of our Patreon and Discord members still holds MMAT, even though we do still hold MMAT too. And so this is partially still an MMAT channel. So some MMAT news we still want to cover. And today the spotlight is on there's a CBC Canada a article about MMAT. And for those of you who don't know who Innova Corp is, basically it's basically a regional fund or governmental fund for a region in Canada, and then they sort of was a early investor for MMAT all the way back to like before 2017, and then they sort of pick up the slack um, that the previous investors left over, and they're like literally one of the only institutional backers in MMAT. And if you go look at their track records, a lot of their exits are out of the business exits, so there is kind of like a iffy sort of the venture capital company. But MMAT certainly would make them money if they decide to exit right now. And then in this article, the article said in July, Innova Corp sold its shares shortly after Meta Materials was listed on Nasdaq Stock Exchange. The sale precedes a 35-fold return on investment. I don't think that's true because because if you go on Fintel, even though the current share amount is actually not correct, because the current share amount is actually haven't adjusted for the. I mean, again, a lot of the SEC filings they still need to amend for MMAT. They still haven't adjusted for the after reverse split amount, and also after the 1 to 8 conversion amount. So this is actually not true. But according to Fintel and according to the old SEC filing, we don't see any changes of ownership really. So I don't think they sold on in July. And if you look at all of the July, the ownership statement, I don't see it. We only see George buying more. Um, there's no Innova Corp stuff that's really happening here. You see, there's no Innova Corp stuff over here. So I don't think they sold. So I think this is misinformation, and this is potentially can be a pretty bad misinformation if people are seeing their early investors actually made money. When they made money, you're implying a realized return. I do understand that when reverse merger happens and everything is on Nasdaq, you can say it's a potential exit, but they haven't exited yet. If you look at their exit report, their most recent exit is actually on Trip Ninja. It's out of business. We don't really want to talk about this. We actually did research on this because we did research on this venture capitalist firm. So yeah, this is misinformation, and we also have some really too bullish of an outlook on MMAT. With this sort of a investor plays contributor, and this guy is pretty much specialized in small cap. And by looking back and reading some of his articles about Apple, I feel like this guy doesn't really have a good fundamental understanding of certain stocks. That's why a lot of his projections are overshoot. So if he says $20, $10 is also a little bit less likely. So just be careful what you read on a lot of these informations online, especially on MMAT. But I know the reason why all of you are here is to bash us about our prediction on MMAT. Just a clarification. On Monday is an outlier, and our prediction from Monday is it's gonna gap up to 5.38 or 5.37, and it's gonna go to about 4.42, and then it's gonna draw down a little bit. This is exactly what happens today during the market. And then right now, the SPY is at a stage where people are like, okay, today's pull up about 1.2%, And if you are trading with a leverage, it's probably already made you about 2.5% on the day. And on the index itself, that means the entire market return is actually pretty half-tick and pretty great if you buy call options and everything. So then, the market is sort of reacting towards that a little bit and be like, yeah, we want to slow down a little bit. You see, we had a retail FOMO on all the way up to like 195-ish for GME, and all of these, like, on Patreon, we talked about AMC a little bit this morning. And I don't see it to have a further pullback by the end of the day, but I could be wrong. You can have a end of the day, all of a sudden people are super super bullish again, because essentially the general economic conditions haven't changed. So this pull down is not warranted. So you probably will see in the next few days it's gonna fill up the gap a little bit for small cap, because small cap is usually functions a little bit slower than the general market. So right now the general market gap, liquidity gap, is already being filled, and we probably will see a upside, and this is gonna be basically a short squeeze happening for the SPY, right? And for MMAT, soft target is 5.18-ish, this line. It's probably going to stick around this line. And if you have a pull up, then to our previous, prediction about the 5.37 line. And if we see a bigger FOMO or call inflow next Monday, then it's probably going to go up to about $6-ish. And if that happens, then selling $6 recovery calls is going to be a very, very good idea. Maybe wait a little 1 or 2 days when liquidity sort of you know liquidity and volume sort of go back down a little bit, because if we go back to $6, then you will see a RSI of 71, and it sort of reaches its longevity as a short-term pull-up. Then our 3.8 or 4.2 prediction will still hold. Again, if you want a very detailed layout of MMAT, you should go on Patreon, and we posted a video this morning. See you guys on the upside. Hope you guys love this. Tomorrow is most likely to be a green day, because it's a Friday after a FOMC meeting, and the FOMC meeting went pretty well. If you watched our previous video, if you haven't, go watch the summary of the FOMC meeting. There are two parts of that. The first part is the more general FOMC meeting sum up and sort of outline the general economic condition, and the second one is more about crypto. See you guys on the upside.